Whew. Yeah, been doing some research. Just been reading Old God's Dead Soon, written about the Rolling Stones, and that was written over 20 years ago. I turned 70 last week. That means Bill Wyman's 84, Keith would be 80, Mick Jagger probably pushing 80, Charlie Watts 82. Um, who else is he? That's it, I think. Oh, Ronnie Wood, he doesn't count. Um, yeah, what I've always sort of suspected. I mean, okay, look, I got my original album. I can't be bothered going and looking for it in the other room. I still have it. One of the first albums I ever bought in 1966, actually, the year after it came out. It's probably the third album I ever bought. It's Too Easy by the Easy Beats and um, well respected man, the Kinks. I bought them both on the same day. They were the first two albums I ever bought. Then I had, the third one was the Hollies, a dreadful album, awful. Um, a band that were really highly regarded in the 60s, but in retrospect, oh, geez, they're pap. I do like two tracks by them, but my God, they haven't stood the test of time at all. Yeah, so, no, this is, I've got the original, I got an original stereo, I got the remastered vinyl stereo and mono, came out 10 years ago. I didn't even know I had this. I was going through some CDs the other day, and I don't know when this came out, but it's Columbia Stereo. I had no idea. I don't know when I bought it. Had no reason to, but I've got it. So yeah. So the thing was, even in 65, 66, when he sang Like a Rolling Stone, Bob Dylan, and Ballad of a Thin Man. Well, Ballad of a Thin Man, nobody knows you hear something about "Do You, Mr. Jones?" in I can't remember the lyrics, but I remember thinking, "Hey, that sounds like it's about Brian Jones," but there was no evidence for it. But I always thought it was about Brian Jones. Then after reading this book, and this guy's, he knows his stuff. He knows a lot of the people in the band and associated with it, and Brian Jones. I don't know why I'm showing this. Everyone knows who Brian Jones is. He was like the epitome of the ultimate dandy pop star. Look how ugly and dull Mick Jagger looks. Keith sort of looks cool, but they put Charlie and Bill right at the back. But yeah, I mean, he was the epitome. He was the Stones. When you're a teenager, he was always at the front. And there was a quote in the book where Brian Jones says, "Yeah, I'm the one in the band you never hear." What he was really saying was what made that mid-period Stones, 65 through to 67 so great was Brian Jones's input. The instruments he learned in an hour or a day, and they're there on the records. And if you took them out, it'd sound pretty damn thin without him. But of course, we all know him from his great slide guitar, Little Red Rooster and I Want to Be a Man, amongst others. He really did write Ruby Tuesday. I've done my research, and they just wouldn't give him the song credit. It's basically his song, not the lyrics, but the melody. I mean, it's the flute. So anyway, it's very nasty people. Bob Dylan's not a nice person. Brian Jones was a complete arsehole. Mick Prick Jagger and Keith Pilchards, they're not nice people. They're all arseholes. They're real bastards, all of them. And but there's a lot of paranoia going around, and apparently Bob and Brian were hanging out a lot in '65. A lot. They the phone bills at Rolling Stone's headquarters used to horrify the accountants from the phone calls, that Brian Jones spent on the phone to Bob Dylan. So that to me, that supports the theory that how does it feel to be like a Rolling Stone, all on your own? This is the exact time when Mick Jagger and Keith Pilchers were taking over the band from Brian. Brian started the band with Stu Stewart, the piano player that was too ugly to be in the band, but he was on the records, but you never saw him. They started the band. It was Brian and Stu, and then they so really Prick and Keith were sort of just like little brats, snotty-nosed little brats that no one took very seriously. But once they got in, so what I was trying to get to here is that they're all paranoiacs as well. Bob Dylan at this stage, he was on massive doses of speed. That's why the lyrics are so, it's speed, there's no doubt about it. There's only two. He only made two great albums, this and Blonde on Blonde. They're both speed albums, And it's not him so much; it's the guys he's got playing on it. Bloomfield, Cooper, those guys. But so I'm getting all over the shop. Like a Rolling Stone, I think is definitely about Brian Jones. At my age now, I can safely say, in amongst all the imagery and the obscure lyrics, it's definitely about Brian Jones being shut out of his own band. And it was his band. Even as a complete prick of a guy, it was his band. So, but him and Bob were getting along fine, and they were both paranoid. Brian Jones was super paranoid because he knew what was happening. But he was a complete arsehole. He had like 7 illegitimate children. He had 2 before he was even in the band. He ripped off the rest of the band members in the early days by claiming to be, getting more from the manager. Their producer, Andrew Loog Oldham, was only 19 years old when he started promoting this band. And by the age of 21, he was a paranoid as well, a paranoid with suffering from manic depression. Brian Jones was a paranoid, extreme paranoia, and suffering depression. And Bob Dylan, well, he had his mental problems. He's always had them. They've always been pretty obvious to me. Anyway, so like a Rolling Stone, I will say here without a doubt, like a Rolling Stone and Ballad of a Thin Man, they are definitely about Brian Jones, right? And ironically, at the same time, this is just an EP. Satisfaction is what basically made this dude turn a rock. He that's the one that did it for him, and that's why there's so much mentioning about like a Rolling Stone. There's a lot of interaction between these were the 2 most influential bloody people in the mid-60s, early to mid-60s. No doubt about it. The Rolling Stones were introducing black people to the white masses. I mean, really, and Bob Dylan. These are so important, but they're absolute creepy, rotten people. Probably the 2 of the greatest singles ever made. Satisfaction comes out. Keith Richards didn't even like it. He didn't even want to put out. Or Mick Jagger. Shows you how much they know. The greatest fucking riff of the 60s. And they didn't like it. The gods are work in mysterious ways. They really pick people that are inappropriate at times. But, Satisfaction influenced Bob Dylan, and this is what sent Dylan to make Highway 61 Revisited. So, probably I was something out. Oh, yes, there was one more. And of course, when Brian was really out of it, on the picture of Between the Buttons, the good-looking, almost androgynous fellow is just a shriveled-up Uncle Fester-looking creature, doing that. An anchor. That's an anchor. And yeah, so there's a track on there called Amanda Jones, and I always knew that was about him too. Miss Amanda Jones, you know, the darling of the discotheque crowd, flitting from place to place. It was about him. He was always partying on, and so anyway, 10 minutes. Oh man. So I'm categorically saying that yes, those three songs, Like a Rolling Stone, Ballad of a Thin Man, and Amanda Jones, are definitely about crazy poor old fucked up, or he's not fucked up, bloody Brian Jones. So yeah, so there you have it. A lot of paranoia going on at the time. Anyway, that's enough from my theories today.